Just seeing you at home is so depressing. Can't you do something about it?
Well, there's nothing I can do about it. Why the hell do I have to carry this burden?
My future looks really grim, but we have a caretaker, so it shouldn't be too much of a burden for you.
Shut up. Just having a bedridden person in the house makes everything gloomy. I come home tired from work, and all I have to look forward to is your depressing face. Seeing it just makes me feel more tired.
His verbal abuse had been getting worse day by day. Every time he came home, I was subjected to this kind of treatment. My name is Olivia. I'm 35. We had been married for 7 years. 2 years ago, I fell down some stairs at a train station, severely injured my back, and my legs had been paralyzed ever since. I could hardly walk, and I was almost bedridden. To James, my husband, I must have seemed like a burden. The reason he didn't leave is likely because this house belonged to my dad. If it was his own house, he would certainly have kicked me out by now. His parents have already passed away, so he didn't have any relatives to go back to. That was the reason why he stays. I was working until I got injured, but had to quit when I couldn't commute anymore. But since last year, I'd been working from home. Well, it didn't pay as much as my previous job. It helped me get motivated by communicating with people outside of the house. But James didn't seem to like that either.
What work can you do when you can't even manage the house? You barely earn anything. It doesn't count as working. I want to feel like I can do something too. Couldn't you at least support me a little?
You're bedridden? Don't act high and mighty. You should take care of yourself before you think about working.
I didn't need him to tell me that. I knew it all too well. I wish he could understand how frustrating and hard it is not to be able to move my body as I want to, but it seemed that's too much to ask. But a housekeeper took care of the house, and a caretaker took care of me, so I was not bothering him. After I became disabled, my dad made sure that I wouldn't be too much of a burden on James. My dad used to run several companies and had a considerable amount of wealth. So I've never had to worry about money since I was a child, and now I was thinking that maybe the reason he married me was for that money. Before we got married, I thought he was a really kind person, and even after we got married, I thought we were a happy couple until I became disabled. But maybe that was just my wishful thinking. But sure, maybe I was just blinded. After we got married, he started to spend money recklessly. But being raised in a wealthy family, I thought it was normal for us to go to expensive restaurants and shop with my credit card. He was kind, and I thought someone with more money should pay for the costs. Actually, even though I felt something was wrong, I kept the lid on those feelings. Since I got injured, James had been treating me like a nuisance. He seemed like a completely different person. I had almost given up at this point. I knew I should consider whether it's okay to continue this marriage with such feelings, but I didn't want to worry my parents at the time, so I was hesitant to get a divorce. Actually, about a year ago, my dad started showing symptoms of dementia. For that reason, before the symptoms got worse, my dad retired from his work. Until then, my parents would often come to check on me, but that had become difficult. When they went out together, my dad often forcefully pulled my mom around, which seemed to be quite exhausting for her. That said, when my mom tried to go out, leaving my dad with the caregiver, his face showed extreme unease, making it hard for her to leave. There were times when he was completely normal, and my mom told me she was more worried about me than him in such instances. I'd love to take care of my dad, but that was just not possible given my disability. Although I received regular updates from my mom, it was frustrating that I couldn't do anything to help. If only I got divorced and could take care of my dad, but since that's not possible, I didn't want to add any more burden to my mom. If I, with my disability, were to live with them, it was clear that even with a caregiver, my mom would feel more stressed. So it was better for them to believe that we're in a happy marriage. At the time, we were looking for a nursing home that provides care and can accommodate my parents together. My dad is normally a very gentle man, but because of his dementia, it seemed he hated it when anyone other than my mother was near him. Perhaps his pride from having led big companies still loomed large within him. Maybe he didn't want strangers to see him in his current condition. So at the time, my mom was essentially taking care of him all on her own. My parents had a great relationship, so my mom said things like, "Taking care of him is not a burden for me." But she was not young anymore, and I knew it was physically exhausting for her. If my dad's dementia worsens, there would be a limit to what my mom can do alone. So I thought it would be reassuring if they could move into a nursing home with professional caregivers, and it would also lessen my mom's burden. But it had been difficult to decide which nursing home to enter since my dad tends to be picky. Once my parents' moving was settled, I was thinking I would consider what to do about my own situation. But then, out of the blue, James brought an unknown woman home. "Hey Olivia, there's a woman I'd like to introduce to you."
Introduce to me.
This is Alina. From today, she'll be your caretaker,
"Nice to meet ya."
Excuse me?
and a salary will be $5,000. You're gonna pay for it. Thanks. Hold on, that's so sudden.
Don't worry. I fired the previous caretaker and housekeeper, so you'll just have to rely on her.
The people who had been coming so far were experienced and really attentive. Thanks to them, I was able to live comfortably. There was no way this blonde woman with flashy nails that James brought can be a caregiver. It's not good to judge by appearances, but she didn't look like she's done housework before. And where on earth did he bring her from? Seeing James and her together, it was obvious that they were not just acquaintances. It was likely that she was his mistress. I'd had suspicions about him for a while, but with his recent verbal abuse, I had become detached from James and thought, whatever. I didn't want to stir up a new fight by confronting him and felt it would be too much trouble. But I never expected him to bring her home.
What do you think about her? She's nice, right?
Is she really a caregiver? I've never seen a caregiver with such flashy nails. They can even provide care and do housework with those nails.
Hans went through the trouble to find her. Don't complain.
James said that without any sign of guilt. What on earth was he thinking, wanting to have his mistress take care of me? I also couldn't understand why she came here even if James asked her to do so. Regardless, I had no intention of being taken care by James's mistress. Ne'er so. I didn't ask her to come here, so why do I have to pay her $5,000? It was absolutely beyond me. And just as I expected, Elena proved to be a woman completely incapable of housework. She only served ready-made meals, and she didn't even bother to warm them up, so they were served cold. Of course, she couldn't take care of me. Thanks to the modifications my dad made to the house after my injury, it was wheelchair accessible, which was great as I could move around if I tried hard enough. But I couldn't possibly bring myself to pay this utterly useless woman a salary. Elena, I can't pay you a salary. You can't cook, you barely clean. You even send my underwear to the dry cleaners, don't you? I'm not a pushover to pay a salary to someone who does nothing. If you want to get paid, get it directly from James. But James said you're the one who manages the money. And of course, I do. If I leave it to James, he would spend it recklessly. If you really want a salary, then you'll have to do these tasks. After saying that, I handed her a paper detailing all the housework and other tasks a caretaker should do. I told her if even one of these tasks is left undone, she wouldn't get a salary. When Elena read the paper I gave her, she exclaimed, "What the hell is this? This is clean every day, cook 3 meals for you, and do the laundry too. Why do I have to do all this? It's the job of a housekeeper. James said just to feed you something, and then I could rest. There's no such thing as an easy job that pays well in this world. If you don't like it, leave right now." "Well, I can't do all this. I'm popular at the store." "Well, I can't do all this. I'm popular at the strip club. You know, I only came here because James said I could make easy money." And Elena tore the paper I gave her into pieces and stormed out, cursing as she went. After making sure she was gone, I contacted the housekeeper and the caretaker who had been helping me before. Apologized for the inconvenience and asked if they could come back, to which they readily agreed. However, when James came home that night, he berated me.
What the hell are you thinking?
"You're the one who brought her here without asking me. I have no reason to pay a salary to someone who is utterly useless."
You're really a cheeky woman. You think you're all high and mighty because your dad is rich, don't you?
I was at a loss for words when he said that. The fact that I was there as I was is undoubtedly because of my parents. The reason I had been able to live without any inconvenience even with this body is because my dad had been supporting me. But why should I be blamed by James for that? Wasn't it James who let my parents help me while he does nothing to help me? If we can't support each other when we're in trouble, what's the point of being married? When I was told that the paralysis in my legs might mean I would never walk again, I kept saying I'm fine. because I didn't want to give up, and I didn't want to make my parents sad. That was also for my own sake. James never thought about how much I've grieved and how much I've despaired because he hasn't done anything for me. It was truly astounding. But the following month, we finally found a nursing home where my parents could move in. The facilities were new, and the staff were incredibly helpful, and hearing that my dad seemed to finally approve of it gave me a deep sense of relief. It would be tough, if not impossible, to move all of their belongings from their home in one go. Again, since it's the home full of memories, we decided to leave the large furniture as is and keep the home as it is for now. James didn't seem interested at all when I told him, but unexpectedly asked me some time after my parents moved into the nursing home.
Hey, by the way, how much savings does your dementia dad have?
Why are you asking that?
Well, I'm one of the family members too, you know. It's better to grasp how much he has. Where does he keep his ATM card?
The amount of savings is about $3 million. The ATM card is probably in a dresser at their home. My mom always kept it there.
I see.
Upon hearing my response, James was smirking. I didn't need to think twice about what he was plotting. The next morning, I woke up to find a filled divorce paper next to my pillow, and James was nowhere in sight. Given that all his clothes and other belongings were gone, he probably didn't go to work. I see. Well then, I should get going. I raised my head and got up, lifting my own legs. I'd been working hard on physical therapy after James left for work. Thanks to that, I'd regained the ability to walk a little bit about 2 months ago. But I didn't tell James. I had a hunch he was up to something, so I was watching his moves. As expected, it was not hard to imagine where he went. I called a taxi and headed there. Upon reaching my destination, I entered the house. Like from inside, I could hear the clattering noise of someone rummaging around. I approached the noise and looked from the shadows. Inside, of course, were James and Alina. It was my parents' house, and James was overturning every dresser in the house. It was as if a burglar had broken in. No, this was without a doubt the work of a burglar. Without alerting James and Alina, I quietly dialed 911. Hello, police. There's a burglar in my house. After making the report, I quietly stood in front of the room where they were. James finally noticed my presence and looked up. When he saw me, his face was as shocked as if he'd seen a ghost.
What? Why?
Hearing James's voice, Alina looked at me. Her reaction was exactly the same as James's. Well, I felt like saying, I'm not a ghost, but I figured they never expected me to be here, let alone that I could walk.
Why are you here? And your legs, can you walk?
I've been working really hard on physical therapy. Thanks to that, I can finally walk.
Why didn't you tell me?
I suspected you were up to something and was watching your moves. I never imagined you'd become a burglar, though.
What are you talking about? This is your parents' house. It's not strange for me to be here. I'm your husband.
You're a stranger to me. At my words, James looked puzzled. Honey, he was the one who wrote the divorce papers and left. You're on my way here. I submitted the divorce papers to the local government office. So he and I were officially strangers in every sense. When I saw those divorce papers, I genuinely felt relieved that I didn't have to go through the unnecessary hassle of asking him for a divorce. So, what are you two doing here? You've really made a mess of things, haven't you?
We can't find the ATM card. For Dad's ATM card,
What were you planning to do with it?
it's $3 million. $3 million. It's unthinkable not to spend it, right?
But it's my dad's money, isn't it? You've no right to spend it.
Shut up. If we can find the ATM card, it's ours.
But your company asks you in this day and age, there's no way they can withdraw a large sum of money from an ATM card under someone else's name. I thought this is what they mean when they say money blinds people. James seemed completely unaware of this. He seemed so obsessed with asking me where my father's money is that he had lost sight of the real issue, or perhaps he was just an idiot. Probably both. You know you can't withdraw a lot of money just with an ATM card, right? You will need to see a bank teller. Do we? What about my dad's identification? Even if you were to take my dad's ID, the bank won't accept it. These days, you can't withdraw money without verification from the account holder. What? Both of them stopped their search and looked at me. It seemed they really hadn't thought that far ahead. Just as I was shaking my head in disbelief, the police arrived.
What's going on?
Well, you were breaking into someone else's house and searching around. Anyone would call the police, wouldn't they?
You tell you give you?
Both James and Elena resisted until the very end, but they were firmly arrested on the spot for burglary. Afterwards, as the theft was attempted but not completed, they were only charged with trespassing and given a suspended sentence. Nevertheless, they both now have a criminal record, so James was fired from his job.
Then James told me I broke up with Elena, so let's get back together. This episode, once you can take care of yourself, there won't be any problem. Let's live happily ever again as a couple.
I had no idea how he could have the nerve to suggest such a thing. I was astonished by his brazenness. Seeing how he could say that after he broke into my parents' house to steal my dad's ATM card.
What makes you think I would remarry to an ex-con and useless man like you?
But you're still in love with me, aren't you? That's why you didn't divorce me, no matter what I said, right?
Of course not. I've given up on you a long time ago. I was just thinking about the best timing to divorce you. I never thought you would break into my house, but I now fully understand that you're truly the worst person.
So, you mean you've known all along?
Isn't it obvious? Oh, but since contacted me, let me just tell you this. I will definitely be demanding compensation money for the infidelity. Well, goodbye. It seemed like he hadn't even thought he would face an additional financial claim. He was at a loss for words. After that, I went through my lawyer to firmly demand compensation money. James, having a criminal record, struggled to find a job again and was living in a cheap apartment. As to pay the compensation money, he was working part-time jobs from early morning until late at night, living a very poor life. Elena was shocked to be claimed for compensation money, something she had never even considered. She rushed to my lawyer's office, looking pale, as soon as she saw the document sent by my lawyer. The strip club where she used to work was no longer an option for her, as she had quit the job after having a fight with her colleagues, believing James's empty words, "I'll have some money soon." Great, now she's working in a low-paying job and begged to lower the compensation money, but of course it was rejected, as my lawyer told me.
Again, now she's working in a low-paying job and begged to lower the compensation money, but of course it was rejected, as my lawyer told me.
I sold the house I used to live in and moved back to my parents' home. I visit the nursing home where my parents live every other day. My dad's dementia seems to be progressing, but there are still times when he recognizes me. Neither of my parents has said anything about my divorce. They told me that the most important thing is for me to be happy. Above all, they were truly overjoyed that I was able to walk again. I still can't run or do much physical activity, so I intend to continue with physical therapy. I'm nothing but grateful to my parents who have always supported me. That from now on, I plan to reciprocate the love from my parents in every possible way.